Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session from the Charity for Civil Servants. Today, we're very fortunate to be joined by Jane from Vital Nutrition, who's delivered so many fantastic sessions for us across this year. And this is the last one of 2025. Time flies. And today's session is centered around men's health. November is Men's Health Awareness Month, a fantastic opportunity to raise awareness of the challenges facing men across the UK. And Jane is going to talk us through a nutritional MOT for men. My name's Andrew, and I'm the Supervisor of our Care and Wellbeing and Health Services here at your charity, and I'll be co-hosting your webinar today. Before I hand over to Jane, here is just a brief bit of background information about your charity, which if you've attended any of our other sessions, you will already be familiar with. As a charity, we started 140 years ago, believe it or not, back in 1886. Next year will be 140 years. And we were set up by civil servants to help other civil servants who were going through a tough time. And that's an ethos that very much remains true today. Today, we're known as the Charity for Civil Servants, an independent charity whose mission is to support civil servants, past and present, when times are tough, listening without judgment and offering practical, financial and emotional support. Life is not straightforward and neither is our offer of help. Everyone is unique and so are our circumstances. So we look at everyone on an individual basis and try our very best to tailor our support accordingly. We are here to help you and also anyone who's dependent upon you financially or dependent upon you for their care. And that is for the rest of your life. So even if you leave the civil service, you are still part of our community. It could be 20 years later, you can still come back to your charity for help. Secondly, we're not a membership organisation. There's no sign up involved. Simply by being or having been a civil servant, you are already part of our community. Although the charity is largely funded by civil servants, you do not need to have donated in the past to apply for help. That's what we're here for. Although, of course, it's fantastic if you can. But that's more than enough for me just now. During the session today, please send any comments or questions into the Q&A section, and Jane and I will do our very best to answer as many as we can at the end. But thank you very much and enjoy the session. Jane.
Thank you, Andrew. It's good to be back with you all. That kind of gave me a shock, Andrew, when you said it was the last session of the year. We've done so many sessions over the last 12 months and all the sessions that we have done have been recorded. So there is a bank of videos for you if you want to find out more about the sessions that we have done over the year. So today, of course, is International Men's Day. So that is why we are running today's session all about the Men's Health Toolkit. I'm just going to start off doing a very brief introduction, a reminder for those of you who have met me before about who I am and why I'm talking to you about diet and nutrition, and as an introduction for those of you who maybe haven't been to any of the sessions. And then we'll get into the body of the presentation. We're going to try and make this as interactive as possible, and there is a Q&A section. So just as we go along, as a question comes into your mind, just pop it in there. And then what we'll do at the very end, I'll finish about 10 minutes early, and Andrew's going to field all the questions that have come in for us. So I will do my very best, as Andrew said, to answer all the questions that you're putting into the Q&A section. So let me share my screen first of all. Just a very brief introduction. You can find my contact details on my website, which is vital-nutrition.co.uk. And on there, you will find lots and lots and lots of information, including loads of recipes. You can have a look at my blog post. There'll be one going up there later specifically about men's health for today. But there's lots of different blog posts. And you'll also find a link to my cookbook and my nutrition handbook. If you're on Instagram, give me a follow over on at vital.nutrition, and I try and update that maybe not every single day, but most days. Or you can find the link then to the Facebook, my Facebook page here as well. If you've got questions after today, please come to me through one of those social media channels, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions and support you. So today's topic is our men's health toolkit. And we're going to really think about the unique needs of men when it comes to diet and nutrition. There are distinct differences between what men are encouraged to eat and what specific nutrients men need more of compared to women's health. So let's, oh, hang on, where's my doofer? Hang on, here we go. So let's start off thinking about your body. Your body is always giving you feedback. It's trying to tell you things. It's trying to give you little prompts in relation to your health and well-being. And when you learn to listen to your body, those prompts can be important signals to help you make changes that matter to your health and well-being. So I'm going to give you a little list of some of the common prompts that your body is giving you, or some of the common messages that as a man you might want to look out for. So things like weight gain or weight loss. In men's health, men tend to gain weight in a very different way to women. It tends to be more apple-shaped, more weight gain around the middle. And that has a big influence on your long-term health and well-being. The more weight that we carry around the middle, the higher our risk is for many conditions and diseases, including cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. If you get sudden weight loss, that is also an issue that you need to talk to your GP about. What about your appetite? Have you noticed that you're craving more sugary things or more white refined carbohydrates or maybe more salt? If you're looking for more sugary things, it tends to be a little bit of blood sugar imbalance. We're going to look at that in more depth later. Or if you crave more salty things, it might be that your adrenals need a little bit of stress support. What about your thirst? Are there changes in how thirsty you are or your energy levels, maybe headaches, maybe mood, and maybe changes in digestion? All of these little signals are your body's way of feeding back to you that it needs a little bit of attention. If you don't listen to the subtle changes and the subtle messages that your body gives you, then all too soon it's going to give you a real wake-up call, and that can be things like high blood pressure, it can be things like high cholesterol or high blood sugar. And I see a lot of clients one-to-one in my practice, and most of the men that I see one-to-one, I am supporting them through either high cholesterol or high blood glucose or pre-diabetes. We're also going to talk a lot today about digestive health and also about prostate support as well as mood. So let's start off with something just for fun. And I've got a dozen foods, 12 foods that I think have a place in every man's shopping basket or on every man's plate. And I'm going to show you the pictures, and then I'm also going to give you an alternative to those pictures because, you know, the picture tells 1,000 stories, doesn't it? But there are alternative options here as well. So just run through your in your head and stick into the Q&A how many you're scoring, and let's see who gets the highest score out of the lot of you, just for fun. So the first three: broccoli, tomatoes, and pumpkin seeds. If you hate broccoli, it might be cabbage or it might be cauliflower or kale. Tomatoes and pumpkin seeds. So 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, we've got pomegranate seeds, could be berries as an alternative, oily fish like salmon, and prunes or any dried fruit. Then we've got garlic, beetroot, and eggs, and walnuts, banana, and oats. So let me see if I can see the, hang on, let me see, I think I need to come out of this to see the Q&A. So how many did you score? How many did you score out of the, put it into the Q&A, how many did you get out of 12? Did anybody hit the 12 score, I wonder? How many did you get out of 12? This might not show me. Might not show me. I thought I could just look at the Q&A, but it's not showing me. I'm going to now just explain why I've put these dozen foods up here for you. So let's flick back to the first three. So broccoli. So anything in the cabbage family. So that's broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, or rocket is packed full of sulfur. These vegetables are sometimes known as brassica vegetables or sometimes known as cruciferous vegetables. But it's the sulfur in these veggies that is the secret weapon. The sulfur that give these vegetables their really distinctive flavor is really important for your liver function. And when we talk about liver function, we tend to think about alcohol, but it does so much more than just detoxify alcohol. Your liver is important for how you metabolize fat and how you digest fat. It's really important for testosterone balance and hormone balance. And there's a little pathway in your liver called the sulfation pathway that metabolizes cortisol, stress hormones, and testosterone. So to really support these, get more sulfur-rich vegetables in your diet. And that is broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, rocket. Try and get one of those in your diet every day if you can. Put them in stir fries, in soups, steamed, any way you like. Next up, we've got tomatoes. Tomatoes contain a really important ingredient called lycopene. And lycopene has been associated with improving heart health markers and also supporting prostate health. In women, it's associated with breast health, but in men, more with prostate health. So it's important to think about how you eat your tomatoes to get the most benefit out of them. If you eat the tomatoes just as they are, that's good. But if you have tomatoes with lots of olive oil, that's even better. So think about, maybe if you're having a salad, put an olive oil dressing on it. If your tomatoes are cooked, that's also super powered. So if you have tinned tomatoes or tomato puree, those have got more lycopene and more protection than just raw tomatoes. So again, something like spaghetti bolognese or curry or stew, using those tinned tomatoes, put a little bit of extra tomato puree on there, perfect. Pumpkin seeds are very rich in selenium and zinc, as well as omega-6 fats. And they have been associated with supporting prostate health and also male fertility. They've got some of the really important key ingredients that every man should be including in his diet. So if you're not really keen on pumpkin seeds, you can get similar benefits from flaxseed. One or the other would be perfect. Next page, wait a minute. Why is it not flicking? Here we go. Next up, we've got pomegranate, oily fish, and prunes. So pomegranates, there is very strong evidence to show that pomegranate juice helps with our heart. And if you eat pomegranate as the seeds, you also get more zinc in there as well, which again, in terms of prostate health and male fertility, is super important. But pomegranate juice itself is what supports heart health. It can be quite expensive, so I would suggest that you're going to get similar benefits from things like frozen berries, frozen blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, or mixed berries. Oily fish like salmon or mackerel, herring, trout, or sardines, or even anchovies are super important for men's health too. And this is one of the differences in the recommendation for men compared to women. So men are recommended to have oily fish in their diet 3 times a week and women only twice. The reason for that is because estrogen protects women's hearts. So because as men, you have a little bit of estrogen, but not much. So you don't have that same protective effect. So you need a little more of these omega-3 rich oily fish. If you hate oily fish, there is an alternative. So don't eat anything you don't want to or that you don't like. You can also get omega-3 fats through walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds. Not quite as beneficial as the oily fish, but you do get some omega-3 through those sources. Or you could take a fish oil supplement. The exception to that rule is if you're on any blood thinning medication like aspirin, then don't take a fish oil supplement along with the blood thinner because your blood will end up too thin. You can eat the fish, but just don't use it as a supplement. And the third one on this page are prunes. So you can guess why I've got those on there. really important for digestion. They are full of soluble fiber. They help to keep your bowel really regular and make sure that you have ease of movement, let's say. But they are very slow release carbohydrate as well. So prunes, dried apricot, raisins, sultanas, figs, really nice for digestion. If none of those appeal to you, then kiwis are really great too. So things like, just if you can get the golden kiwis and eat the skin, even better. Really important for helping to keep you regular. Garlic, beetroot, and eggs. So garlic, we know, is one of those foods that is classified as a superfood. And part of the reason is it's got a similar ingredient profile to our broccoli that we saw because it's full of sulfur. So it does help that sulfation pathway for testosterone metabolism in your liver. But it also supports your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Now, when you read a recipe or when you cook with garlic, you probably put it in at the start of cooking. So you probably crush it or chop it and throw it in at the very start. I would suggest that you leave it to the end of your cooking. That way, you're going to get a better yield of the allicin and alanine, which are the active ingredients in your garlic, and you're going to get more benefit as well as more flavor from it. So crush it under the flat of your knife, chop it up, like it gets loads of oxygen around it, and then put it in towards the end of your cooking. Beetroot is a really interesting ingredient, and a lot of people would use beetroot in sports nutrition. So it's very, very good for sports performance and circulation. Really nice for blood pressure, and also has been associated with male fertility. And eggs. It used to be that eggs got a really bad press, and we were told that we were not meant to eat more than 2 or 3 eggs a week. Thankfully, that has completely changed, and it's now recommended that you can eat as many eggs as you want. They are full of so much nutrition. They contain a particular type of fat that is very specific for our brain health. And that beautiful yellow yolk is a good source of vitamin A for things like eye health and as a good antioxidant for immunity. And then our last 3, walnuts, bananas, and oats. So look at the shape of a walnut. It's almost the same as a little mini brain, if you use your imagination. So really nice for brain health, focus, concentration, and for mood. It's one of those plant foods that is a nice source of omega-3, but again, rich in some key nutrients specific for men's health, including zinc, selenium, and vitamin E. Bananas are nice slow-release carbohydrate, especially if you eat your bananas slightly green, not too ripe. If they are slightly on the green side, they contain what is called resistant starch. And resistant starch acts like a prebiotic or a natural fertilizer for your probiotic bacteria in your gut. So they're really good for digestive health. And then the last one I've got up here are oats. Look at the picture. It's got great big chunky jumbo oats. The bigger the oat, the more slow, sustained release energy you're getting from that. So it keeps you feeling fuller for longer. The other benefit of oats for men's health is that they contain a particular type of, it's called a polysaccharide called what is it called again? Beta-glucans. I was thinking about a different type of beta-glucans, which is nice for immune function, but also has been shown to balance cholesterol levels. So actually those are 3 good ingredients for a breakfast, aren't they? Porridge with banana chopped on top and a little handful of walnuts. That would really set you up well for the morning ahead. Next up, I want to think, you might have seen this roller coaster in some of the talks that we've done before. And I want to bring this back specifically to men's health because in some ways, I was saying to you about body shape and where men can hold more body fat around the middle. This is central to that. But also, if we're on this blood sugar roller coaster, it does increase our risk of type 2 diabetes. How that would show up in your blood test would be elevated levels of something called HbA1c. So to get that under control, we need to keep our blood sugar levels balanced. And I'm going to tell you how and why in a second. When we eat things that are fast release energy or drink things that are fast release energy, they give us this instant rocket fuel blast. Then our little pancreas gets switched on and we release insulin. And insulin stores that high blood sugar as fat around the middle, but it also then gives us this real dip in blood glucose. And when we get the dip in blood glucose, then we feel fatigued. We feel a bit fed up. We maybe feel more stressed. We maybe have less focus and concentration. And we definitely are looking for more sugary things or caffeine or fast release carbohydrate to give us that energy boost. That also might be when we're looking for things like energy drinks, which will not do us much good in the long run because they act like rocket fuel. Then we get the crash and then we want more and more and more. This roller coaster also affects our sleep. So what can we do about it? Well, the first thing is make sure that you've got protein in every meal. We don't store protein. We need to make sure that we've got a slow and steady supply of it. So make sure you've got some protein at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. So protein at breakfast might be, going back to that porridge idea, it might be that you've got milk in your porridge. It might be that you stir in a spoonful of milled flaxseed and then you top it with some walnuts. Or maybe you have eggs for breakfast. Or maybe you have something like a Greek yogurt with a low sugar granola and some berries. Your Greek yogurt would count there as your protein. At lunch, you could have things like tinned fish or chicken or leftover meat from the night before. But equally, you might go for vegetarian sources of protein like beans and lentils in your soup, maybe things like nuts and seeds, or maybe things like hummus, cottage cheese, falafels. Consider your quality and quantity of carbohydrates. These are your starchy foods. These are the things that give you energy. And if you want a slow and steady supply of energy, then get the carbohydrate that's rich in fiber. So things like oats or oat cakes, things like brown bread or wholemeal pita pockets, things like brown rice or wholemeal pasta. Really up your fiber. Do it slowly so that your belly doesn't tell you about it. So increasing your fiber slowly and steadily is going to be much more gentle on your digestive system. Carbohydrates without fiber, so things like white rice, white pasta, and white bread give you that instant boost in energy and then a real crash in blood sugar. That's when we set ourselves up on a cycle of craving, wanting more sugar, more white refined carbohydrate, and maybe more caffeine. So really think about the quality and quantity of your carbs. The quality is getting the fiber in, and the quantity should be about the size of your fist. So when you look in your breakfast bowl, your lunch plate, or your dinner plate, you want about a fist-sized portion or a quarter of your plate being carbohydrate. Quarter of your plate protein, quarter carbs, half vegetables would be the ideal. It doesn't have to be just plunked on the side of your plate. It can be cooked into things. So, for example, something like a curry with lots of veggies in it and a bit of rice on the side. Next up, keep an eye on sugar. And it can be the hidden sugars that are really the killer here, because you might already be aware of eating less biscuits and less chocolate and drinking less fizzy drinks. But what about things like the sauces that you're using in your stir fries, the sweet chili sauce that you're putting on top of things, or the ketchup that you're adding to your dinner? Really start considering how much sugar is in your diet and where the hidden sugar is creeping in. Also think about when you're looking for sugar. Are you looking for something sweet in the afternoon? And why is that? Did you eat enough at lunchtime? Did you have any fiber in your lunchbox? And did you have enough protein in your lunchbox? Sometimes it's the little changes that we make at our main meals that make a real difference to how much we crave sugar. So more protein, more fiber, acts like a little bit of a stabilizer on your blood sugar. That should mean that you get less cravings for sugar. I also just want to touch here a little bit on the timing of our meals. And this again is where men differ from women. Generally speaking, intermittent fasting does tend to be a little more beneficial for men than for women, But the first thing I would say is we've got to get your blood sugar levels stable first. Secondly, do this gradually. So eat within a 12-hour window, which means that you're giving yourself an overnight fast of 12 hours. And then gradually increase that window to about a 13-hour fast or a 14-hour fast. That has been shown to help support healthy cholesterol levels, reduce inflammation, and also help men with weight management. It doesn't work so well for women, but certainly can benefit men. So really thinking about the timing of your meals, not eating too close to bedtime, making sure that you are fueling yourself really well, and also that you're not snacking right throughout the day. So you're better to eat a meal and eat enough that's going to do you about 4 hours before you eat the next meal. 4 or 5 hours. Let's move on to mood. That last bit that we just talked about, the roller coaster, the blood sugar roller coaster, has a big impact on our energy, weight, but also on our mood. But there's also some specific things that you can do to help support mental health. So, too much caffeine, too many white or refined carbohydrates, artificial sweeteners and sugars, and too much processed food really affects our mental health. Caffeine acts a little bit like adrenaline. So too much caffeine in our body makes us feel more stressed, more anxious, more jittery, and more overwhelmed. Could you make the switch to decaf? Could you cut your caffeine in the afternoon so that you're sleeping better? Maybe going for things like decaf, or even better, going for herbal teas. Could you swap some of those white refined carbohydrates to more slow, sustained release energy foods with a little more fiber? So swap your white bread to wholemeal. Swap your cornflakes to Weetabix. Swap your white rice to brown rice or wild rice. Little things that make a big difference to your mental health. Keep an eye on artificial sweeteners. Very often when we're trying to do good and reduce sugar, that's where the artificial sweeteners can really sneak in. And that has an impact on serotonin levels and also on the gut-brain connection. So just take care that you're not eating a lot of aspartame or other artificial sweeteners in things like drinks, chewing gum, low-fat foods, especially yogurts. And processed foods. There was another report this morning on the radio, all about ultra processed foods and the impact it has on cardiovascular health and type 2 diabetes. But the other thing that has been highlighted is the more processed food we have in our diet, the more we are likely to suffer low mood or depression. Men are at increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And also things like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high triglycerides. The reason for that is that women have got estrogen, and estrogen is protective of heart health and cardiovascular function. So as men, you just need to work a little bit harder around your diet and your lifestyle to protect your heart. We all know that the Mediterranean diet is it when it comes to heart health and cardiovascular function. And some of the key ingredients in that beautiful, colourful, flavourful Mediterranean diet include oily fish. So remember, that's the one that men need to eat 3 of a week and not twice a week. And if you don't like your oily fish, making sure that you're getting walnuts, chia seeds, or flax seeds in your diet, or maybe taking a fish oil or a vegan alternative. Nuts and seeds. So in particular, we've already mentioned walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and flax seeds, but you could add in there things like sunflower or chia seeds, things like Brazil nuts or almonds. They're packed full of healthy fats, things like zinc, selenium, and vitamin E that help protect heart health. Olive oil is the best oil to cook with and to use for your dressings and drizzles for heart health and cholesterol. It is expensive, so I would suggest that you be savvy when you shop. You don't have to buy the most expensive olive oil to get the benefits of it, but go for an extra virgin olive oil rather than a light olive oil. It's the polyphenols, the stuff that gives the olive oil its taste and its colour, that are going to give you the benefits, as well as the oil itself. Take care about how you're cooking. So if you're frying, go for a little bit of oil and fry really quickly, like stir fries, not deep fat fried. You know, we all know that now, don't we? Steaming vegetables is the best way of cooking instead of boiling, so that you're getting the benefits of all those water-soluble nutrients there as well. Your body needs lots of fruit and vegetables, and especially for heart health. Also, actually, for protection of your cells against cancer. So the more fruit and veg and the more color that you have in your diet, the better. We all know the message around 5 a day, but most of us are not getting there. So if you're eating 1 or 2 or 3 portions of fruit or vegetables a day, increase your intake by just 1, and that will make a big difference to your health long term. It might be that you slice a banana on your breakfast, or you put some berries on your porridge. Maybe you have a bowl of soup with that sandwich at lunchtime, or maybe you add an extra onion or pepper or some frozen vegetables into your dinner at night. Build it up slowly and gradually and get more antioxidants and more protection from those fruit and veg in your diet. Oats, we've already mentioned that beta-glucans, that's stuff I couldn't remember the name of. So beta-glucans is really nice for balancing cholesterol, and it's found in oats. So you could do overnight oats, you could do porridge, you could do oat cakes would be really great too. I put on this list supplement with fish oil, and while there are real benefits for heart health, if your GP or your consultant has got you on a blood thinning medication, then don't take the fish oil at the same time. Always consult your doctor if you're going to take a supplement. Other things that help our heart, of course, these are the things that do us more harm than good. Manage stress as much as you can. And exercise can help with that. Relaxation techniques, making things, being creative, doing puzzles, reading a book, anything that helps your mind just get in the flow and switch the stress load off. Reducing your alcohol intake is a biggie, and it's so much easier now to do that because there's brilliant low alcohol or alcohol-free beers and spirits and all sorts now. Don't smoke. Cut back on salt and caffeine, especially if your blood pressure is high. Salt and caffeine will both increase blood pressure. Improve your fitness, both cardio fitness and strength training, and know what your levels are. Do you know what your cholesterol is? Do you know what your blood pressure is and your HbA1c, that blood sugar marker? If you don't, go and get yourself checked out. The more informed you are about your health, the better, because then you can do something about it. Let's focus now on prostate health. And in terms of diet and nutrition, there's quite a lot that you can do to help reduce inflammation, which is the very sort of starting point of prostate problems, and support prostate health. There's a group of foods called phytoestrogens, and it's a little bit off-putting as a man because it sounds like something that should be just for women's health. But phytoestrogens, which are found in beans and lentils and milled flaxseed, also have a regulating effect on testosterone. So if you can get beans and lentils into your diet 3 or 4 times a week, and if you can include milled flaxseed in your diet most days, it's found to have a really beneficial effect on prostate health and generally men's health. And easy ways to do that are things like more lentil soup, more hummus, putting chickpeas into your curry, buying things like 3-bean salad, or getting yourself a little pack of falafels. They're made out of chickpeas. They're really good with your hummus and your salad inside a wholemeal pita pocket. Putting things like lentils into your bolognese can also be really good. Or if you're making a chili, put extra red kidney beans in there. The milled flaxseed is so versatile. You can put that into your overnight oats or your porridge at breakfast. You can stir it into yogurt. You can put it into smoothies, or you can sprinkle a little bit on top of curry, bolognese, any of those kind of one-pot dishes. Just mix it in at the table and just get into the habit of building a spoonful in every day. We know that a higher fiber diet reduces risk of prostate problems. So again, another reason to switch those white carbohydrates to more of the whole grains. Increase your water intake. This might seem a little counterintuitive if you've got prostate issues, because you might be getting up in the middle of the night to pee more, but drink more during the day in the early part of the day to help support your bladder, urethra, and the prostate. So build it up really gradually. Tea and coffee act like diuretics. So if you have prostate issues, tea and coffee is going to make you pee even more. So cut back on the tea and coffee and get more water in instead. Nuts and seeds are super powered for prostate health, and colourful fruit and vegetables, especially those dark green vegetables. Keep your sugars to a minimum. Sugar builds and powers inflammation. So really cutting back on sugar does make a big difference. Cutting back on saturated fat, and there's studies to show that vegetarian diets are more protective of prostate health. So maybe cutting back on your meat and going for maybe 1 or 2 meat-free meals a week, or maybe going for more oily fish in your diet. Feed your digestion. Your digestive health has almost a spring-like effect on the whole of the rest of your health and well-being. So making sure that your digestion keeps regular, that you have a bowel movement every day, listening to your body again and thinking, right, if you're feeling more bloated, or you're getting a little bit more heartburn or acid indigestion, or you're more constipated, or you get more diarrhea, what is your body telling you? What can you do to support yourself? And obviously, if there's blood in the stool, mucus in the stool, or really significant changes to your bowel, make sure you always speak to your GP. For digestive health, it starts before you even eat anything. So getting the saliva glands going and getting sort of, the anticipation of food is really important for your brain to tell your belly that there's food coming in. So sit at a table, chew your food properly, really enjoy your food, and you will absorb more nutrients from that plate of food. Get cultured. Get those cultured fermented foods into your diet. These are probiotic foods, things like probiotic yogurts, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut. The more of these we include in our diet, the better the balance of the good bacteria in our gut. And it could just be something simple like getting some regular natural yogurt into your diet every day. Your digestive system needs more fiber. So obviously we get fiber from our whole grains, from nuts and seeds, from beans and lentils, and from fruit and vegetables. All the foods that we've talked about for different reasons already today. So make the switch to slightly higher fiber foods. But when you increase your fiber, remember that fiber is a little bit like a sponge. When a sponge is dried out, it goes really hard and it's not very absorbent. The same thing with fiber. You need water when you increase fiber in your diet. So increase your fiber and increase your water at the same time. Make sure you're getting 1.5 to 2 litres of water every day. I've put a note up there, eat 30 plant foods a week. This can feel really daunting, especially if you already struggle to get your 5 a day into your diet. 30 plant foods a week, a day would be even better, but 30 plant foods a week goes beyond our fruit and vegetables. And this comes from a project that was run in America quite a few years ago called the American Gut Project. And their studies found that people who ate a minimum of 30 different plant foods a week had a much lower incidence of IBS. So your plant foods can be fruit and vegetables, but it could also be those beans and lentils, the chickpeas, for example. It could be the different types of nuts and seeds, different types of herbs and spices in your diet. The key thing here is you can only count that food once. So if you have porridge with walnuts and banana every single day, that still only counts as 3 in your week. Whereas if you swapped that, your oats, banana and walnuts, and tomorrow you have oats with frozen blueberries and chia seeds, that brings an extra 2 into your week. Do you know what I mean? So it's variety is the key thing here. And this is where our frozen vegetables can come in really handy. There is a good case that men could benefit from a good quality supplement. If you are supplementing your diet, there are two that I would highlight here. One is a men's multi. It's going to have higher levels of things like zinc, selenium, vitamin E, and maybe B vitamins for energy. And the other one that I would highlight at this time of the year in particular is vitamin D. Because of where we live, UK, we are recommended to have 2,000 IU of vitamin D during the autumn and winter. So between October and May, when we don't really see very much sunshine, our vitamin D levels do become depleted. When we're low in vitamin D, we can have low energy and fatigue, low immune system, and low mood. And supplementing vitamin D at this time of the year can improve your immunity and your resistance to disease and improve mood, especially if you suffer from seasonal affective disorder. So a men's multi and a good vitamin D could really strike a good balance for you. Just before we come into the Q&A, you know, if you've been in my sessions before, you know that I always ask you this. So, what will you change? So I've given you quite a lot of information there today, and we've talked about lots and lots of different types of food that are very specific for men's health. It's your men's health toolkit, the nutrients and the foods that are really going to help support your health and well-being. So is there something that you could add into your diet this week? So between today and next Wednesday, what will you change? What will you eat more of? What will you add into your diet? What will your focus be to help support your health? So let me see. I'm just going to come into, I can see some of these. Oh yes, now I see where you've got the scores. Ah, very good. Mark Chamberlain, I think you're our winner for the score of the foods. You had 10 out of the 12, which was pretty smashing. Let me see. There's a couple of questions that I can see. A lot of them I can't, so I'm going to come back to Andrew to help with the question. But the one that I can see there, Andrew, is it true that you can't cook at high heat with extra virgin olive oil?
Yes.
So that is true to a certain extent. It used to be like I trained way back in the eons of time in the 1990s, and we were sort of told then don't cook with olive oil at all. Now the research sits where olive oil is safe to heat up to 190 degrees. The key thing is if it gets smoky, it's damaged. So if you have to put the extractor fan on and open the windows, you've damaged that delicate fat. So your extra virgin olive oil, you can cook with it, but just don't let it go smoky, is the key thing there. Okay, so I'm just going to encourage you to, if you've got any questions, just to put them into the Q&A. And also, if you can also put in there just if anybody has any ideas around what you can change in your diet this week. Oh my
Thanks,
goodness.
Jane. There's another question that's just come in, and this person says that at my gym there's a poster which says 1 in 5 men die before the age of 65. Is this true? It seems really high.
I am really shocked at that, actually. I don't know the answer to that question. But what I would say is that the in terms of men's health, still it remains the biggest killer for right across the UK and Ireland is heart disease. But I don't know about that statistic, I have to say, but certainly it's really thinking about, thinking about your health as early as you can and what you're doing to support your health. But that you're right, that does seem a very high statistic.
A few questions came on earlier on, Jane. If you don't mind, I'll share those with you.
Yes,
But
please.
Jane says we've still got time, so if there are any questions, actually, someone's just said here what they're going to take away, that they will try and have more variety of plant foods.
Lovely.
Fantastic. What did you say again? Was it 30 in a week?
Yes, 30 a week. It seems like
30
a
a
lot,
week.
doesn't it?
Not, when you said a day though, that would be a different challenge.
Yeah,
A
that would
week
be a whole
feels more
different thing.
manageable.
Yeah.
Someone here's asked about breakfast, and they've said that I've heard that having a high fat breakfast can be good. Is it okay if I have eggs and sausages for breakfast?
Okay, so there is quite good evidence to show that high healthy fat and high protein at breakfast really helps to keep us feeling fuller for longer. But sometimes we get these mixed messages. So a high fat diet is a ketogenic diet. So the problem is if we take little bits of a ketogenic diet and mix it with a little bit of low GI diet and mix it with a little bit of something else, you end up with a diet that's high in fat, but also high in carbohydrates. And that is a recipe for disaster. So I would say that maybe instead of your eggs and sausages, how about, and this is like a breakfast that was a very, very old fashioned breakfast that I think should make a comeback. What about something like poached eggs and kippers instead of your sausages? And then you'd be getting your oily fish in there, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, just be careful about the saturated fat in there because that is one of the things that we know is a risk factor for heart disease if we have too much of it.
Nice alternative. Next question, Jane, is how about fast carbs to support exercise? How can you fuel exercise and muscle growth when full of fiber and lower in calories?
Okay, really good question. So we've got two different types of carbohydrate. We've got those fast release carbohydrates and the slow release carbohydrates. So your fast release are the things that are high in sugar and low in fiber. So hold that thought for a minute. The slow release are the ones with the more fiber and keep your blood sugar levels much more stable. They tend to be low sugar. So most of your diet should center around, in terms of your carbohydrate, most of your carbohydrates should center around those slow, sustained release because that's what's going to keep your blood sugar levels really stable and help give you good energy and steady energy supply. But there is a place for these higher GI, fast release carbohydrates. And that place for men, again, this is where men are different from women. For men, there's a 1 hour window after you have been training. Depends what kind of training you're doing. But if you're doing more cardio and you've used up your glycogen in your muscles, you want to replenish that glycogen level really quickly. The way you do that is get those fast carbs in. So that could be something like a banana. It could be something like dried fruit. It could be something like a glass of juice, for example. Or yes, it could be white bread. But so that's the place for those fast carbohydrates, not all the time. The other part of that question, how can you fuel exercise and muscle growth when full of fiber and lowering calories? So you fuel exercise by eating that slow release carbohydrate through the day. But the key thing for muscle growth here is protein. So make sure that you've got protein at every single meal. And again, if you're doing more strength training, that's where you need the protein along with that carbohydrate after you've been training to make sure that your muscle grows. So if you think about when you're doing strength training in the gym, you get tear of the muscles and it's the repair of the muscles that actually builds the muscles. So making sure you've got the protein in there for the repair and the muscle growth is super important. It's not necessarily about lowering calories, it's where your calories come from. Good question. Lots of parts to it, that one.
Mm.
Hopefully that
And I've
makes
heard
sense.
about an anabolic window. Is that right, Jane? Within that, you talked about an hour
About an
approximately
hour.
post-training if someone's doing strength training, for example.
Yes, about an hour for men. It is shorter for women, but
Mhm.
about an hour. So I quite like things like if you can get a really good quality protein powder, protein shake, like a whey or something like that. If you're vegan, there's lots of really good alternatives as well. But if you have that within your hour window, and if you have that mixed up, say if you made something like a smoothie and put some berries into it, or a bit of banana into it, blitz it in your blender, that would be absolutely ideal. Or it could be something like toast peanut butter and banana would do.
Very nice. Very nice. Another question here, Jane, around sugar.
Hmm.
Where do you feel most people fail when it comes to having too much sugar?
Oh, good question. I think sugar is so, use the word moreish. So
Mm,
when we kind of start eating high sugary foods, we just want more and more and more of it. But I think actually we live in a world where every aisle that you go down the supermarket is packed full of sugar. You go into a coffee shop and really the only options are high sugar. We are surrounded by sugar everywhere. And it's really the more aware that you can become of where sugar is in your own diet personally and really working to cut back as much as you can, that's where the magic happens really. That is where you're going to feel like you've got more energy, that it helps with weight management, brain health, cardiovascular risk, prostate health, all those things that we've just talked about. But yeah, it's difficult given the society we live in, unfortunately.
a lot of hidden sugar can be difficult to avoid at
Hmm.
times.
Yeah.
Um, this question here, Jane, is quite a good one and a tough one. What would you say is the number one thing of all the advice that you've given today? What's the number one thing that men can do to focus on their diet?
I would say, going back to that question before, is really look at your sugar because you know that roller coaster thing. So it
Mm.
used to be that when we were talking about cardiovascular health, we were really focused on saturated fat, but actually we kind of lost the balance a little bit where we went low fat, low fat, low fat, and actually diets then were much higher in sugar. And now we know that sugar is a big driver of all those kind of metabolic risk factors that lead to heart disease, that lead to type 2 diabetes. So I would say if you can really focus in on cutting back on your sugar, that would be my first step that I would encourage you to do. And by bringing a little bit more fiber and a little bit more protein on your plate, you'll probably find that you're more satisfied and you're craving sugar less as well. Good
And
question.
I love that roller coaster slide that you shared as well as a good way to visualize the peaks and troughs of your blood sugar. Questions just come in and it says, could we add protein, fiber, and good fats to ice cream to reduce its negative impacts while still enjoying a treat?
Oh, I love this. Absolutely, we could. Yes. So actually, ice cream. So look at again, this is where you start reading the ingredients. If you can get a really good, there's lots of really good ice creams. If you get a good vanilla ice cream and you recognize all the ingredients as proper food, that's the first thing, because a lot of ice cream's really processed. Um, and and then with your ice cream, if you have something like some berries with it and top it with some nuts, there you've got one of your five a day and you've got some healthy fats and you've got more fiber, and that will balance out your blood sugar. But the other thing about your ice cream, not that I'm advocating that you'll go away and eat ice cream and that's the thing that you change, but the other thing about ice cream or sugary foods is if you have it immediately after a meal, the protein and the healthy fats and the fiber in that meal balance out the negative, not balance out the negative effect, balance out your blood sugar a little more. So have it with a meal rather than in between meals. Nice question.
And actually on that, you can get high protein ice creams and things, can't you? What do you think? I know
Yes.
you can get high protein anything, but what do you think about high protein ice cream
Yeah,
equivalents?
I think it can be a good option, and it's got a little bit extra whey in it.
Yeah.
But just again, check the sugar. So pick up the high protein ice cream, pick up your regular vanilla ice cream, and check the protein, check the sugar on the label. The other thing that you can do if you want to be super healthy, you can actually freeze bananas, mush them up, and make a banana ice cream. But you know, a little bit of ice cream in moderation is not going to be a big issue, I think.
Another question, Jane, just come in.
Hmm.
Is a sub 5% sugar a realistic and safe level to consume? Are natural sugars as harmful as synthetic?
Nice question. So when we are looking at food labels, you're it's a really good idea to go 5% or less. So 5 grams of sugar or less per 100 grams is a real nice way to know that you're getting a low sugar food. But you're absolutely right that sometimes, say if you're picking up something like a muesli or a granola and there's dried fruit in there, that will bump your sugar levels up. And really, sugar is sugar is sugar. Yes, there's more fiber in your dried fruit, and I know that that was one of the things that I put in our dozen foods for men's health was the prunes, but it's really cutting back on all sugars as much as we can, because it's that kind of demand upon your pancreas every time we eat high sugar foods, no matter whether it's natural sugar or sugar, it's going to lift your blood glucose. It's going to ask your body to release more insulin, and that's going to cause that cascade of issues. So it's just really thinking about trimming it down as much as you can, not completely avoiding it, but just really cutting back the unnecessary sugar, I think is important.
Thanks, Jane. Is there any of the advice you've given today on foods that I would need to consider not appropriate for children?
Yes. So the advice around the vitamin D, because children need a much lower level of vitamin D. So 2000 IU for adults, but it's age appropriate for children. Apart from that, maybe the oily fish 3 times a week might be a little high for children. But I would say everything else off the top of my head, there's nothing there that's going to be adverse for children. And I also think the more that we can get kids into the kitchen, involved in cooking, trying different foods, tasting different foods, the better.
It's a question that's come in here. I think someone was rephrasing a previous question. They've said, if you have furred up arteries, can you reduce this issue by healthy nutrition alone?
Okay. So I would make it depends how much plaque is there. So I think that you've always got to talk to your GP or your cardiologist about this. But you can dramatically improve your HDL and LDL cholesterol and also your triglycerides. So yes, you can reverse it, but it depends on the level of plaque that is there, the level of arteriosclerosis that is there. So I would say that this is not an alternative. It should work in tandem with the advice that you're getting through your GP or your cardiologist. Stress is key here too. Stress and exercise is important too.
Is monk fruit sugar good for you? As I have heard, this is very good.
It's still sugar, and yes, it's got some minerals in it. Yes, it's a little bit lower glycemic index, but it's still sugar, and also I think it's quite expensive. So I would still limit the amount that you have in your diet.
Thanks, Jane. And we might make this the last question that's just come in. Thank you for answering so many brilliantly, as usual. This one says, I can't eat dairy or eggs, so I have to use some supplements or vegan alternatives which are properly UPF. Are these okay to ensure I get sufficient calories and macros?
Okay, so I am assuming that it might be things like, so alternatives to eggs, you can use, depends what you're using them for, but if it's things you can use, it sounds horrible, but it does work. It's like a chickpea water that you can use in things that's going to give you protein, but it's also going to give you the texture of eggs. And a lot of the dairy, for example, the dairy spreads can be quite processed. So I would just say, just make sure that you're reading the label and you're getting one with as few ingredients as possible. And if that's the only thing in your diet that is your ultra processed foods, and you're surrounding that with lots and lots and lots of real foods, then it is not going to be an issue. So sometimes we can kind of get carried away with everything in our diet has to be completely natural. It's not necessarily realistic. So I would just limit it as much as you can, but don't get overwhelmed by it or scared by it. There are good vegan alternatives, and I think as long as the rest of your diet is super healthy, then it's kind of damage limitation, I suppose, in a way.
Thanks, Jane. And thank you, huge thank you, not only for this session, but in all the sessions that you've delivered this year. I did share the list of the previous webinars that are available. So if everyone has seen them, you can watch them on our website. And when Jane shared her details, I don't know if you do have any questions, you can contact her on any of the socials that were there, if you're okay me sharing that, Jane.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
we'll also include the worksheet as well that accompanies this session. So thank you all for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Bye.